What's the craziest thing you've overheard on a plane? A 5-year-old boy once said, "Dad, can you ask them to pull over so I can go to the toilet?" Ha! That's adorable. I once overheard a kid who must have been 8 to 10 ask his dad, "Boy, how long would the layover be?" "Dad, 2 hours." "Boy, but how long is ta?" "Dad, /_0?" Right answer, 4 to 5 SpongeBob episodes. There was this kid was behind me that kept telling her dad she lost her tooth and the dad was disgruntledly trying to find it. And some guy nearby said, "Hey kid, I hear if you lose your tooth on a plane, the tooth fairy gives you $50, to which the dad replied, "Hey look sweetie, the tooth fairy decided to sit next to us on the plane." Mwahaha. Hey look sweetie, the tooth fairy decided to sit next to us on the plane. Not that crazy as such, but when literally about to touch down, a lady got up and started walking urgently towards the bathroom. The cabin crew immediately started saying, "Madam, we're about to land. You have to sit down." The lady responded by screaming in a panic, "I'm gonna shit myself." They allowed her to continue. I was recently on a flight where, about 45 minutes before landing, long, international flight, I got up to pee and overheard a flight attendant say one of the bathrooms had been occupied for a while. As we were about to land, I heard the flight attendant say, "Sweetie, I can get you a ginger ale, and we are about to land, so just hold on tight." Everyone is boarded and the plane is in the middle of the taxi when a kid about 10 seats up and on the left side, I was on right side, starts crying and screaming at the top of his lungs, "I need to poop and I'm going to poop," over and over again until the seatbelt signs came off. I've never seen so many worried faces and the look of panic as the mother picked up the kid and bolted to the toilet. I was sitting behind this cute toddler and her dad one flight, and while we were landing, she wouldn't sit down. She was turned around in her seat staring at me. Her dad was calming, telling her to sit down while we land, and she looks me straight in the eyes and goes, "I can't, I'm pooping." R/3-sentence horror. I sat in front of a kid, 12 to 13, and his older sister, who I assume was his guardian. It was a cross-country flight, and the kid was casually talking about how he had never flown before and he is looking forward to it. He seemed likely on the spectrum a bit. It is pretty wholesome so far. Then the plane starts to move and he instantly freaks all the way out, screaming, "We are all going to fucking die. Let me off this plane, it's a fucking coffin, you're all going to die. It's going to be a fucking fireball," etc. The stewardess comes by and tries to calm him down. The sister is talking to him in English and Spanish, trying to get him to relax, telling him he is embarrassing her, she's never taking him to Puerto Rico if he keeps acting like this, etc. The guy in front of me turns around and loudly offers the kid Xanax. Finally, the hero of the story, a big southern black lady, says, "James, not his name, honey, I'm gonna need you to calm down sweetie, cause you're making all the rest of us real nervous now, okay?" Eventually, and for no noticeable reason, the kid relaxes and starts talking about how cool flying is. Like a switch, he starts looking out the window, saying things like, "Wow, the view is really cool. I feel safe now, everything is okay after all." Audible collective sigh of relief. Where was his sister flying him to? Astronaut camp. I think about him every time I fly. One day I would like confidence that must be required to openly offer strangers, especially kids, prescription drugs. I am a pilot for a major airline. Decades ago I was running for a deadhead flight home and managed to snag the last seat. A mother and young daughter were seated next to me. Halfway through the flight, the mother, seeing my disheveled look after flying all day, asked if I wanted her daughter's PB&J sandwich that she wasn't going to eat. I politely declined, but she insisted that was the best peanut butter and jelly sandwich I'd ever had. This is my favorite one of the entire thread. Wholesome as heck. Kind moms are a true gift. She mommed you hard. Wholesome. The lady beside me told me that she was farting a lot, and she didn't care about telling me because she wouldn't see me again. I wish I had that woman's confidence, Lamau. I respected her game. I was sitting next to a father with his small child. The child wouldn't stop hopping around, until the father said, "Sit still and be a good boy or the plane will crash because of you and we will end up dying." Never seen a kid so quiet before. A guy coming home early to bust a cheating wife. He was on the phone with a friend/family who told him the other guy was at his house, but they didn't expect him back until the next week. Happened to me. I got rebooked on an earlier flight and came home about 5 hours earlier than expected. Wasn't my wife yet, just my fiancée. Worked out for the best for me. We both knew it wasn't working out anyway. She then married the guy and he treated her terribly. Turns out he had a cargo ship of psychological problems he kept well hidden. It took her several years to get the divorce to go through and get their finances untangled because he dragged it out as long as he possibly could. Confucius say if man steals your woman, best revenge is to let him keep her. Wisest thing Confucius ever said. I overheard a passenger passionately arguing with their seatmate about the correct way to eat a slice of pizza with chopsticks. What is the correct way? Edit. Wow, this is my most upvoted comment ever. THX for the fun responses people. D. You don't. Not with that attitude. Not at that altitude. On a charter flight from Goa to the UK. He's taking ecstasy, and he has a knife in his bag, said an old couple to the stewardess, referring to me. I said, I don't have a knife, I'm taking Valium. I just want to go to sleep. Stewardess believed me and moved the couple. To be fair, you were coming from Goa. On the other hand, taking X on a flight sounds like it would be a terrible waste. And I'd been up all night partying, clothes still covered in colored chalk from Holi. Was an entertaining flight. You got to keep your knife, right? I was sat next to a teenage boy and his dad. The kid was telling his dad how much he loved the song Sexual Healing by Marvin Gaye. When the kid was finally done talking, the dad just looked at him and said, "You're a virgin." Ha 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 ha, this has really tickled me. So you think, Dad? Not something I overheard, but something semi-interesting nonetheless. I once went and got sushi with my mom and I noticed a guy and a girl at another table very clearly on their first date. They were both dressed very nice, a lot of awkward laughter. The guy was being ultra gentlemanly, like pulling her chair out for her. You know, just the usual stuff that tips an observer off that they were still very much getting to know each other and wanting to make a good impression. Fast forward 2.5 years. I was boarding a plane in Atlanta, Georgia, heading to Colorado with my brother to go skiing when I saw the same couple seated near the back of the plane. I was in the row directly in front of them, so when I put my bag up, I turned to them and said, "This is going to be super weird, but did you guys have your first date at insert sushi restaurant?" They both got wide-eyed in shock and laughed and told me that they had in fact had their first date there. I told them I was there that night and just happened to recognize them when I boarded the plane. It was friendly and we chit-chatted for a bit. They were going skiing at the same place we were, so it was cool and all. Day 2 of our trip, my brother and I decided to go to the top of the mountain and take a few of the more advanced slopes down to the bottom. There were maybe a dozen or so people up there, and before taking off we decided to look at the trail map to make sure we were going to get back to where the shuttle could pick us up without having to hike our gear for 2 miles. About 20 feet away from us, a guy got down on one knee and proposed to his girlfriend, and everyone clapped as she jumped up and down with excitement and said yes. They took off their helmets and goggles to kiss, and it was the same freaking couple. I literally was there for their first date, met them for the first time on a plane purely by chance because I was sitting in front of him, and was present when he proposed to her. I assume they're still married because at the rate we're going, I'm probably going to run into them again if one of them decides to file for divorce. Pilot accidentally left the intercom switch on. The whole plane heard him say ooh. That's weird. Nothing else. Plane took off amid varying levels of anxiety throughout the cabin. I'm here to tell the tale today, so thankfully it wasn't too weird. Captain and foe were probably laughing their asses off. Hey Bob, watch this. Accidentally. That fucker. That's a Far Side cartoon, lol.